Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 8-game baseball slate that starts at 1 o'clock, or 1:35 rather. There is one game that has weather potential, and that's the Toronto-Pittsburgh game, so do keep that in mind, and do keep track of that. With that said, it's a pretty decent slate. The pitching is a little bit uh, rough today, but the hitting is got lots of value across the board. And so we have some good options there. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It helps the channel a lot. Also, drop your home run calls in the comments below, and I'll shout you out tomorrow if you get one right. With that said, let's get into the the core plays. I have Emmanuel Valdez for Boston and Bryce Harper for Philly on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, we have Valdez and Brandon Nemo. So we'll go ahead and get into this core play though. See here, or to the top plays for pitchers. Garrett Cole is the top play here. He's obviously fairly expensive here on DraftKings. He is rosterable as a P1 option. He's got some really good upside and good metrics here. The matchup isn't ideal, obviously, against Tampa Bay, who's one of the best hitting teams in the baseball this season so far, but he has really good stuff. He's also got big time upside, which definitely helps roster him on the slate. Then we'll look at Joe Ryan from Minnesota. He's also in play today. He started the season really solidly with good matchups every game. I like his upside today, though it is a little bit risky as a result of the matchup. But and Cleveland doesn't strike out that much, but he definitely has good upside in this matchup, and so he's viable here. Then we'll look at Mason Miller for Oakland against Kansas City. Now, he had two rough games to start his season, but he's still getting a decent amount of strikeouts. And then the last game against Seattle, he finally broke out. He played 7 innings and had 100 pitches. If he can continue that type of game play, then he'll have really good potential in fantasy when it comes to the strikeouts and stuff. So I like his price today as well as a decent value play. And then Josh Fleming for Tampa Bay, he will be the pitcher that comes in after the first couple innings, and he'll be a good option on the slate against the Yankees, who really just don't have much in the hitting aspect right now due to injuries, and the back part of the lineup is completely awful. So he'll have some strikeout potential there as well. Moving into the catchers, it's really kind of slim pickings here. But Danny Jansen's in play for Toronto as a Hail Mary approach option. He's a boomer bust guy here, but he's got some nice matchup metrics, and so he's definitely in play. Whoever starts for Detroit, whether it be Haas or Jake Rogers, will be in play on this particular slate, mostly due to their potential of a home run as well. They're also pretty cheap, so they're both viable here. And then Connor Wong for Boston is in play as well as a good, decent option here. Where is he? Who has some nice upside in this matchup, and he's hit the ball fairly well to start the season, and he's had some really big games, which he definitely has the potential to do today. So, moving into the first baseman now, Vlad Jr. is questionable to play today, but if he does draw the start, he'll be in play, though he is fairly expensive. But depending on how you go with pitching, he is rosterable if he does draw the start. Then we'll look at Vogelbach for the Mets, who has some nice matchup metrics for this situation. He does have home run potential here, and if he draws a start, he'll be in play as a good option. Moving into Vinny Pasquantino, he's a good value play here at this position. He's hit the ball really well so far this season, and his price is starting to rise, but he is still viable here as long as he stays under $4,000. Brandon Belt is also in play, though he's high risk, high reward. He's a boomer bust play. He occasionally will have a giant game like he did yesterday, and I look for him to try to do that again today. Also consider Carlos Santana, Connor Joe, and Josh Naylor at this position. Moving to second base, we'll look at Valdez for Boston, who I think is a core play today. He's hit the ball really well to start his season, and he's got really good metrics here. He's also got stolen base potential, which just adds even more value to him. His price is still cheap, and it probably won't be for too much longer if he continues on this trajectory. Luis Arias is a good option for Miami on this position. His price continues to rise, but his batting average is 430. He almost never has a zero fantasy point game. I think he's had one all season long, and so I think he's got some really good matchup metrics. Though he's not really a home run threat, he's just a guy that's going to get on base and do some stuff from that perspective. Jorge Polanco from Minnesota is in play. He started the season really solid, and he's continuing to play well. I like his upside, and he's hitting the ball decent, pretty solid here, and in this matchup with the metrics. And then Jeff McNeil for the Mets. He's in a really good spot. He is a boomer bust play on this slate because of his price, but he definitely has potential, and he has been hitting the ball pretty well. And the Mets are definitely a team that you could potentially stack today. Moving into third base, Rafael Devers. He has some really interesting upside here. His prices come down slightly, which definitely helps roster him a little bit easier. He is high risk, high reward, but he definitely has home run potential in this matchup, and he's one of the best home run hitters so far this season. Then we'll look at Mikael Garcia for Kansas City. He's a little bit of a risky spot, but he started the season really solid. In his first 5 games, he's had hits in all of them. He's got really nice upside. He's also got stolen base potential, and he's definitely worth a flyer if in GPPs on some of your lineups. Nolan Arenado for St. Louis. He finally hit another home run yesterday, and he seems like the last few games he's gotten some hits finally. He's got 5 hits in the last 4 games, which maybe he's getting out of his slump now. His price is also a little bit reduced, which helps you roster him, and so he's definitely viable on the slate. Moving into the shortstops, Castro for Pittsburgh is very interesting today. I like Pittsburgh's stack kind of today, even though I do kind of want to like the opposing pitcher. The Pittsburgh's just too attractive with their potential. He's a bit risky though, but he is kind of a boomer bust play. But he's definitely in play in the slate. Looking at Mikael Garcia here again is definitely viable. Javier Baez for Detroit is also in play. Maybe not many guys on Detroit will do well, but he's been hitting the ball well lately. He's also got home run potential. He's had 3 home runs in the last 5 games, which were his first 3 on the season. And if he can continue this streak, then this will definitely be a good position to put him in your lineup. Bo Bichette is also in play at $6,000, so he's expensive. He's hitting the ball so well and having really nice matchup metrics. It's hard to ignore that. Moving to Bryce Harper. In the outfield, he is a core play for me today. He's $5,600, but he started the season. Last 4 games, he's been extremely solid so far. I like his upside here, and he's got good metrics and home run potential again. Yoshida for Boston is playing, probably hitting the ball just about as good as anybody right now. He's had hits in every game for almost 16 games, and so I like his metrics here. He's also got a home run potential, and he's hitting the ball really solidly. He's had a bunch of games in a row with some really good upside. Now, his prices have come up, but he is viable regardless of that. Chris Bryant for Colorado is in play here. He has some nice matchups here. He's not a huge, great option on away games usually, but depending on the matchups, then he is, and this is a situation where he definitely draws that potential. Andrew McCutchen is also in play, though he may or may not play today, so do keep that in mind. But if he does draw the start, he's definitely in play as a home run hitter and having some really good potential in that Pittsburgh stack. Brandon Nimmo is in play for the Mets. I really do like the Mets today, and he's got really good base hitting potential here, and which will lead to potential good metrics for a good game from him. Connor Joe is also in play for Pittsburgh. I really do like a Pittsburgh stack today, and he's another guy you could roster to help you do that. He's got some good metrics for this situation. Then finally, last but not least, Alex Verdugo for Boston. He's got some really good metrics in this one. He's got boomer bust potential, but he has home run metrics for this particular situation. So moving on to the outfielders, into the FanDuel rather. We're going to basically be stuck with 3 different pitchers to choose from, and that'd be Garrett Cole and Joe Ryan being the top 2, who are almost identically priced here. And then if you want to save money, you can go down to Mason Miller as kind of a Hail Mary option. But there's plenty of value on the slate, so it's really not necessary to go cheap if you don't want to. But he is viable on this one. Moving into the catchers and first baseman, Bryce Harper can play here. And he definitely has home run potential. His price is still pretty fair here on FanDuel, so I do expect him to continue to rise as he gets going. Paul Goldschmidt is very expensive today at $4,000, but he has good metrics here. He has hit the ball well the last couple games, though he had an 0-for-4 game yesterday. He definitely has some upside in this matchup today. Then we'll look at Dan Vogel. Where'd he go? Daniel Vogelbach for the Mets. He's in a New York Met stack if you want, and he has some viability today. He doesn't start every game, so don't really I'm not so bothered by his fantasy points per game because a lot of times he gets one at bat, and so but we'll have to wait and see if he draws a start, and if he does, he'll be viable today. Vinny Pasquanto is also in play for $3,300. He's priced really good for this matchup. He's hitting the ball pretty well lately, and he's got good potential to have a good game. Brandon Belt is also in play here at near minimum price. He is a boomer bust option, but he is he's had some really big games this season, so he's got some nice upside there. Moving into second base, Castro for Pittsburgh. Now he's high risk, high reward because he's not super consistent, but he's been getting hits. He just hasn't had big games very often. But when he does have those big games, then he tends to be a really top tier option. Luis Arias for Miami is also in play at $3,100. He's got good metrics. He's hitting the ball well. Not really the biggest boom guy, but he definitely has potential to be a solid fantasy output guy. Jorge Polanco is also in play for Minnesota. He started the season extremely well. He's hitting the ball just about every game, so as long as he continues to get hits, then he's definitely going to be viable, though his price is a little high. Jeff McNeil is also in play for the Mets, another guy for the Mets stack. If you want to go Mets, he's definitely somebody that would be considered here, but he is a little bit Hail Mary-ish today. Moving into third base, Valdez for Boston. I really like him today. He's also priced very cheap, and he's really hit the ball well to start the season, and I like his upside. Then we'll look at Devers for Boston as well. He's a good alternative, though he's very expensive. He's got home run potential, and he's hitting the ball extremely well lately. Then we'll look into the shortstops. Castro fits here as well, but also Javier Baez for Detroit. He's got some really good metrics for this matchup. He's hitting the ball really well, and while there's only a couple guys from Detroit that really has good potential, he's definitely one of them today, and he's at a position that there's not a ton of great options. Though Bichette is available here as well. He is high risk, high reward simply due to his price, but he's hitting the ball extremely solid to start the season. Mikael Garcia is also in play at shortstop here. He can only play shortstop on FanDuel, so he has some nice metrics so far, as he's hitting the ball really well, and he's also got stolen base potential. Moving into the outfielders, we'll look at Harper, who I do really like a lot, but he's harder to roster here on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. He's got some really good matchup metrics, and I think he's a viable option on both sites. Then we'll look at Yoshida for Boston. He's got some really good metrics, not quite as ideal here on FanDuel with the price, but he definitely has hit the ball extremely well. He's had hits in every game since April 18th, I think, so he's got some really good potential here. Kyle Schwarber is also in play because of his cheap price. He's very boomer bust, but when he does hit home runs, he tends to pay off for you, and his price is cheap enough that he's definitely rosterable as a result. Andrew McCutchen is also rosterable as a day-to-day, though he is unlikely to play, I guess, today. It's hard to know if he'll play or not, but if he does draw the start, then he will be somebody that's worth taking a look at with home run potential here. Brandon Nemo, who I think is a core play here on FanDuel due to his price. He has some nice metrics and nice matchup here. He's hitting the ball well and should be able to garner some fantasy points at the very least. Connor Joe is also in play for Pittsburgh. He's got some really good metrics for this matchup. A little bit riskier than some of the other options, but he's definitely in play. And then finally, last but not least, Alex Verdugo for Boston. I really like Boston today, and they have really good metrics for this matchup, including him, who's hit the ball really well lately. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.